Let me get my things together here. Okay. You Utah, y'all make me feel real nice. Thank you for coming out for this great cause. Okay. I've been abused in the 20th century as well as the 21st. So that means 2 centuries I've been abused. And now you guys are with me. And all these members, their families, have been affected by this militancy of police suppression, oppression, draconianism. We have people in this community that are down. Not only those people that are gone, but the people in the families. You know, I hurt because they hurt. And I just hope now that we all see that this is just not a geographical problem. It's a freaking universal problem now. I mean, out of the universe. Salt Lake City is an aggressive police brutality state. I said Utah is a police brutality state. Listen, I don't know if you watched CNN last night. The crawl, that is. I kind of go to the crawl. They talked about the UN understanding Mike Brown's mother that we black people in this nation are being oppressed, not only oppressed, but we are being tortured. The whites are being tortured. The Native Americans are being tortured. The Hispanic people are being tortured. We all freaking being tortured.
Young white girls like Danielle Willard was killed too. She's one of the victims.
Yes, Danielle Willard, my friend, Alan Nelson, Dylan Taylor. Guys, yeah, I said guys. Hello, all you pet owners out there. That was one of the brutalest murders of the whole summer. He was guarding his property. These officers, their training, their mindset, it's not just here in Salt Lake City. It's all over.
Coast to coast.
Yep.
Coast to coast.
That's right.
City to city.
Every corner.
But we got it going out of the universe now. I love Salt Lake City.
Yes.
I love Utah. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this place is motherfucking ingenious. Did you see Will Smith in the Wild Wild West? Oh yeah, did you see it? Do you know what he meant? Hey, Utah is rare. It's raw. And we got a real serious problem in this city.
That's right.
Not in the city, but the Utah.
Yes.
And so what we got to do is come together like we are right now. I think I need to see more Utah against police brutality. Paraphernalia. We are here. We are here. Hey, I ain't no young man. I'm an old man. I'm not elderly yet, but I'm trying to get there. They stopping me. They blocking me with a white lie, with a white wall, and with a whitewash. And 1-1109, what they did to me in the 21st century. I didn't go back to the 20th century. That's relevant too. But you people, you guys are out here now, and you recognize. And I like the fact that you say Black Lives Matter. They do. All lives matter. Citizens' lives matter. And we got to make sure that we're making a bona fide effort that our pets are protected. What do you mean protect and serve? They ain't doing it. They ain't doing it not the way they should be doing it. And then they're gonna take them gun, they're gonna shoot and make you a target. Not only with the gun, but when they did my friend Alan Nelson, they targeted him to death on June the 9th of 2012. They did. With Julian Bond. Julian Bond was on 6 South. We have a problem in this nation.
Yes.
And I think now we need to realize it is. And I'll tell you one thing. I've been watching these placards out here. I love the placards. Yeah, I can still read. And I always like the newspaper. I've been reading the newspaper over 50 years. Every day. And I didn't see no freaking UN in there today. Because torture is one of the things America is doing to their citizens.
Yeah.
Not only in New York, in California.
And Utah.
Did you read Colorado? How about Albuquerque, New Mexico? The citizens turned their back on the city council. This place is, this Utah, this state, this union, American Union, United States. We have so much corruption with our police force.
Yep.
And I got proposals that we come to the table and make sure this time in this age, we always talking about age to represent the time of something happening. Well, this is a movement, it's more than a movement, it's an anti-human movement that we're trying to be anti-police brutality. Why that being anti-human, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay. But the fact of the matter is we have to stand up here. We have to stand in. We got to collectively make an effort. Go over there to the legislature and say, hey, this is what we need change. How are you going to have a car with a camera and it don't work? How are you going to have a camera on your chest and it don't work? What kind of madness is that? Who did that? Who did that? Who did that? No camera, no car, don't work. All right? And what I seen and what they did to Darian and what they did to Dylan and what they did to I keep going back on it. It's in my head, it's in my heart. It's a brutality of the first degree. I can't even get to my pocket because I got things I wanted to say. Now, I don't know how much longer I can talk, but I got the sunshine. I didn't think about this sunshine in Utah. What do you think? I've been out here for 31 years. Guess what I did? I helped build that 201 South Main over there I love. Right down the street from the Woman Mall that I can go on Main Street and dance. How many of you dance on Main Street? I have. Hey, we got a great city out here. But we got to move. I heard for what they did to me on 11109. And these families that lost their lives, Danielle Willard's mother, Melissa, they came back with that. The judge came back with that. How can he do that? And thank God for Sim Gill, huh? What do you think? He's on top of it. He's on top of it. Yeah. Real. But we got to keep on going, and we got to be having that coalesce. You understand? We got to be able to merge and understand that we do have racial issues in this nation. We have a lot of racial issues in this nation. I heard one this morning. But before I go there, let me go back. Let me go back to 11/9/04. White guy, brown eyes, blue hair, got shot with the handcuffs on. He got shot with the handcuffs on. That's 04. That's the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen. We need to understand that we have to curtail this activity. Sooner or later, it's going to be one of us. If it's going at the rate it is going now. So we got to keep our eyes open and we got to make a move. And the movement that we are here right now, we need to go to legislation. I know I reiterated, but that's what we got to do, people. Understand? Because our lives and our families and our pets are precious.
Amen. Yes.
All right. So So I think it might be giving me a sign to wrap it up. But the fact of the matter is, you all look good out here. Oh yeah, give your best a big old hand. I ain't never seen this many people and how you can gathered around here. Yeah, you deserve it because you care. You care. Did you talk against police brutality? And I'm gonna close my face. Thank you very much.
It is Utah against police brutality. And one thing we can ask ourselves 3 questions about how we want to change this system.
We gotta do better.
What do we want to win? Who do we have to win it from? And how do we have to win it? We put that together. We do it as a people, as a mass movement against police brutality. And they can't stop us. They're not going to stop us. This is us. We're the ones we have been waiting for, and we can do this.
Yeah!
Our next speaker is Gregory Lucero from the Freedom Road Socialist Organization.
Hey everybody, I just have some notes here. You guys have probably seen me around once or twice. And I just have to say, this is the hardest work for me to do, is police brutality. You know, I do anti-war, union work, immigration, you name it, but this is the hardest for me, so just bear with me. And it's the hardest for me because I know every time I walk down the street as a Chicano man in occupied Aztlan, that a cop could come up behind me and see a cell phone. I could be checking my Facebook, you know, or screwing around on some video game, and they would shoot me in the back. And I know every one of the red, brown, and black faces out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about sort of the views of myself and the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. We always have to remember MLK. And MLK preached nonviolence. And it was a big discussion. And I support nonviolence and people who are nonviolent. But, you know, we need you in the mass movement. But then they murdered King. And they murdered Brother Malcolm. And they murdered Brother Huey. And Brother Jackson. And here today, the ghost of Brother Martin and Brother Malcolm are with us. The struggle that they started is not finished and will not be finished until black and brown people can walk down the street without fear. And I don't care who they have in the White House as the head cop and what color they are. We need to be free in the streets. Yeah. And this is systematic. In Tulsa in 1921, there was what was known as the Black Wall Street. You know, and we hear about Ferguson and how can they destroy their own communities? Well, this was the Black Wall Street. It was the richest black community in the entire country. So what happened with the aid of the police and the National Guard? White people rampaged through Tulsa and destroyed it and burned it to the ground. Hospitals, schools, churches. Right now, the KKK is suspected of burning down Mike Sr.'s church. Are you going to accept that? No! Are you going to let the KKK get away with this shit? No! And the cops say nothing. They say nothing. It was just revealed in Florida that many of the cops there were part of the KKK. They always talk about the good cops. Well, why aren't the good cops outing these cops? Yeah. Why is there a blue line of silence? And the reason there's a blue line of silence is not because there are mistakes or some bad apples. It's because the system isn't broken. It was built this way. I'm glad to see. Glad to protect the rich. I'm glad to see so many white faces out here in Utah. Because let me tell you, folks, there's only a few of us out here, and we can't do it without you. Yes. We need your help. We need you to get those demands and promise that you're not just going to call in. You're going to share them with your friends, your family, your coworker. You're going to put them up at libraries and bulletin boards and coffee shops. you know, this state is working how it was supposed to. And we need you, and you're waking up to the fact that we already knew. We have been living in a police state for 500 years, and we've been fighting. Sometimes we've been running, but we've always been fighting. And we're so glad that you're here to join us in this fight.
Revolution now!
Ain't gonna get a disagreement from me, sister. Stand with Ferguson means more than just being out to support Ferguson. Standing with Ferguson means standing with SLCC, or SLC. It means standing with these brothers and sisters who are not 500 miles away, but are right here, grieving for their lost children, for their stolen lives, for the brutal torture, and humiliation they've suffered at the hands of the police. And we need to stand with them, and we need to build with them, and we need to fight with them. We've got to dare to struggle. We've got to dare to win. You know,
Fighting for our children.
And
Fighting for everybody's kids here.
That's right.
if we don't do it, they sure aren't going to do it for us. And I want to talk to you about some of the things they've been saying about the protesters and looters and rioters, so-called rioters in Ferguson. And if you think, and we can all be intelligent people, we can have discussion on the limits of protests and rights, but I saw an interview with a protester who said, you know, they interviewed him and they said, how can you destroy your own community? And he said, man, what do you mean my own community? We don't own any of these stores. We don't own any of these buildings. We have nothing. We have nothing, and they want to paint us like savages? No, we're fighting back. The same people who refuse to stock milk or build a grocery store, who make us have to go to the 7-Eleven to get food for our children, are the same ones supporting the cops that are out there killing us. It's the same group of people who own the buildings and the corporations that own the politicians and the judges who won't give us justice. So we can have intelligent disagreement, but I'll tell you what I said after the verdict was in, and I hope that you say the same thing. Not one word. I don't want to hear one bad word about the people whose lives are being taken, who are being beaten, gassed by the police out in the streets. We can disagree about their tactics, but I don't want to hear it. They are standing up and fighting back. It's not a riot, it's a rebellion. And that's what we have to keep in mind. You know, I want a peaceful event here. You know, there's a lot of kids, families out, and that's what we are organizing. But we have to recognize that it's right to rebel against oppression. It's right to rebel against injustice. It's right to rebel against these killer cops. Chairman Fred Hampton, the Black Panther Party, who was murdered by the police in his bed, sleeping next to his pregnant partner.
337 Monroe Street, Chicago, Illinois, baby.
That's right. He said, dare to struggle, dare to win. If you don't dare to struggle, you don't deserve to win. Are you going to dare to struggle? Yeah! Are you going to dare to win? Yeah! Dare to struggle, dare to win. Never silent, never again. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Never silent, never again. Thank you, folks.
All right, I just want to reiterate the really important point is that we have families in Utah that are demanding your help. Are you going to help families in Utah? Yeah! We want justice for these families. Yeah! We got a stack of demands here. Please do not leave the rally without one. You get one, there's information about phone calls you can make. We're going to demand that the cops who attacked Jacoya with their dogs, they get fired. They don't get a job anymore. No! We're going to demand demand what happened to Brian Cruz. We want to know if he's on the streets. Do you want Brian Cruz on the streets? No! And we're going to demand that they drop the ludicrous charges against Susan Hunt. Are you going to do that?
We want your judges right now. Right now, we want your judges.
That's right. That is right. We got one last speaker. We got Rocky Anderson.
A white young man here in Salt Lake City, Dylan Taylor, unarmed, was told by a police officer to take his hands out of his pants, which he did within seconds. You can see the video.
Yeah.
And the police officer shot him dead. The killing was ruled as being justified. Will we, the people, accept that ruling from those in authority? Last July, a black man, Eric Garner, was thought to be illegally selling cigarettes. Cigarettes on the street of New York. He told white police officers that he wasn't doing anything wrong. Then one officer tried to grab him, and Garner pleaded, "Don't touch me." This is also on video. You can see it for yourself. He didn't threaten anyone. Another white police officer came to him from behind, put him in a chokehold, and killed him. You can hear Garner on the videotape of the incident saying, "I can't breathe," as the officer maintained the chokehold after dropping Garner to the ground. In Columbia, South Carolina, a black man who pulled into a gas station was approached by a white police officer. The officer told the man to get his license. So the man reached into his car for his license, and the police officer shot him. Fortunately, it was in the leg. The man, screaming out in pain, asked what he did wrong. The police officer said he had committed a seat belt offense, and he had been shot because he reached into his car after the police officer told him to get his license. That's also on video. Now consider how many dozens, how many hundreds of these kinds of incidents have not been caught on video, and how many police officers have lied to escape any accountability. In Saratoga Springs, Utah, a half-black young man, Darian Hunt, who had a toy sword, was running away from white police officers who had approached him. And as he was running, and again, this is on the security video, you can see it for yourself, he looks like he was running for his life away from these police officers. And as they ran after him, when he wasn't threatening anybody with any harm, he was shot 6 times in the back.
Murders!
And the killing was ruled as being justified. Now anyone who knows the facts, and anyone who has seen the security video of Darian running would call it homicide.
Yeah.
A young white vet in Ogden, Matthew David Stewart, was growing 13 plants, marijuana plants, for his own use in his home. Police officers, who apparently didn't have better judgment and apparently nothing better to do, raided his apartment when Stewart was asleep. They broke down his door with a battering ram. Tragically, Stewart who had been sound asleep and who apparently thought his home had been invaded by robbers and who had no idea that those who noisily entered his apartment were police, blindly, around a corner, shot in the direction of those that he heard in his home and shot 6 of the police officers, one of whom was killed. Later, Stewart, who was caught up in this tragic cycle of events simply because he had grown 13 plants for his own use, committed suicide in jail. No police officers were disciplined for the unnecessarily dangerous, absurd raid leading to the deaths of Stewart and a police officer. Zero accountability. Does this seem to be a constant theme with which we will put up? Or are we going to finally say we will resist in every instance? We will join with our brothers and sisters across this country and say no more.
No more!
The solutions are clear. Police officer training and policies must emphasize de-escalation of violence, de-escalation of tension, de-escalation of hostility. When you're running after Darren Hunt with a gun and he's running away from you, not threatening anybody,
Let him go!
and you raise that gun to shoot, you are escalating. You are not de-escalating, and you need to be held accountable. Now, if any of us engage in unnecessary violence, unjustified violence, we will be held to account under the law. The rule of law, which is at the core of our constitutional republic, demands that everyone, including police officers, be held accountable under the law in every instance of excessive use of force. One of the other solutions is that every community must implement, must form, put in place an independent police civilian review board. What are these city council members and these mayors and police departments afraid of in resisting the implementation of an independent civilian review board, so it's not the cops policing themselves, but good citizens in our community taking a hard, independent look at the justified use of force by police? It doesn't take an expert in policing to know there is no justification for shooting someone several times in the back for running away, apparently running for his life from police officers, unless that person poses a risk of serious harm to someone, which absolutely was not the case with Darian Hunt. Even a smart adolescent would know it makes no sense to engage in a search involving breaking down a door with a ramming device when the occupant is asleep and is suspected, at the worst, of growing some marijuana plants for his own consumption. It was reckless, it was unprofessional, it was dangerous, yet there has been no accountability by the police for the subsequent tragedies of 2 lives unnecessarily lost. And what about the killing of young Daniel Willard by a West Valley City police officer? That killing was determined after thorough investigations to be unjustified, determined by the Salt Lake County District Attorney. Yet a few wrong words by a prosecution expert seem to have been all it took for a judge to dismiss the case at a preliminary hearing, which is a very rare event, and has allowed the killing of Danielle by a police officer to have occurred with impunity. the kind of impunity that none of us enjoy under the law, under the system, this double standard system of justice in this country. A system of justice that allows the rich and the powerful in so many instances to escape accountability when we, the people, will be run in for any offense, including, as in Weldon Angelos's case, to serve 55 years under a mandatory minimum sentence for selling marijuana 3 times while he owned guns. That's another Salt Lake City resident, and that's the kind of violence that's being committed in the name of the war on drugs in this country every single day. So let us not engage in generalizing as to all police officers, many of whom provide greater safety and security for our communities with too little gratitude by many residents. But let us also demand that those officers, if they're going to be the good cops, they stand up against the bad cops and they don't come under the guise of the police officers to try to escape any accountability for these outrages. A police officer without a warrant was told that a 3-year-old boy was missing. Actually, the boy was sound asleep in the basement of his family's home here in Salt Lake City. That officer didn't obtain a warrant. He just went through a closed gate into a home, adjacent to a home, 1/8 of a mile from that boy's home, entered a yard, opened a shed door, and when a dog did what dogs do, barked and ran toward the police officer, that police officer shot that dog dead in cold blood.
They don't care anymore.
That dog was Sean Kendall's best friend. And it was shot dead by an officer who had no training and for whom there were no written policies in the Salt Lake City Police Department regarding how to determine if a dog is present in an area to be searched or how to recognize if a dog is truly a threat. And if you know Geist, if knew Geist, or talk to people who knew Geist, there was no way this dog posed a threat to this police officer who shot that dog dead. This police officer apparently also didn't know that the Utah and United States Constitutions forbid searches of our homes, our yards, or our sheds without a warrant unless there is good cause to believe that there is a connection between the property to be searched and the emergency that is used as a justification for that search. So, we, the people, must provide the resistance to abusive police practices and unconstitutional practices and the present indications of a march toward a militarized, unaccountable, unconstitutional police state, one in which we cannot feel safe from police violence, one in which our privacy rights are criminally disregarded, and one in which some police too often see those with whom they deal as the enemy instead of members of our community they are duty-bound to protect. So those of you here today who raise your voices, who show up to express your heartfelt concerns, you are the true patriots, vindicating the protections of our state and our federal Constitution. You are the vanguard necessary to turn the tide away from impunity for unnecessary violence and the terror it creates. If no one stands up, if no one resists, if no one raises his or her voice, the path will be cleared for more violence, more abuse, more terror in all of our communities. And while we raise our voices against brutality, racism, and the consequent fear, let us also recognize the sacrifices of so many police officers and their loved ones as they conduct themselves honorably, because many of them do, And again, they have to stand up against those who don't. And let us keep in mind that these police officers, too, are harmed by those officers who, instead of de-escalating, ramp up the violence, ramp up the racial divides, and ramp up the hostility that leads to so many unnecessary deaths, so many injuries, and so much fear and hatred in communities throughout our nation, including sadly so many Utah communities like Ogden, Salt Lake City, West Valley City, and Saratoga Springs. So it's incumbent upon every one of us, keep growing this movement, keep bringing people out, keep spreading the word, because if we're not tenacious, it's not a movement. If we're not going to be standing out there and coming back time after time, it's not a movement, and it's going to take a movement to shake these folks up and let them know we are not going to put up with this anymore.
We don't want a militarized police force. We want militant activists. Militant activists who will walk that mile and walk the next mile. We have a meeting in December, December 17th. It's a Wednesday night. It's at the Salt Lake City Library. You can find out more information about our meeting. It's open to everybody here. We're going to meet. We're going to discuss. We're going to make demands like these that you can do. We can help win justice for the families. Now, before we end the rally, there's one more announcement by this brother here. I'm just announcing that there is an unpermitted march that's going to take place. There's no permit for it, so if you want to participate, it's at your own risk. It's going to go this direction down State Street on that side of the road, just in one lane from here to the courthouse. If you want to participate, just follow the white banner that was standing up here in the front of the rally the entire time. Thanks.